what happens when Russia invades? Did you see this new book by the former Deputy Joint Chief of Staff's guy?
No.
So it's a new novel, and it's like one of these like very lightly fictionalized novel written by this military guy. I'm sorry I don't have his name, but anybody could get it in a second by Googling. And he basically has written a kind of a thriller that, according to the review that I read, it reads more like a how-to for how Putin can overrun the former Soviet Union in 48 hours, including now NATO countries. And that there's literally nothing NATO can do about it. Nothing. And the reviewer said, something like, this is a disturbing book, and Mr. Putin should thank him for this, this guide. But just say that happens, right? Just say that Putin overruns these republics, which he's expressed, believes. Yeah, let me digress for a second here.
Mm-hmm.
A couple years ago, I'll come back to that point, but a couple years ago, I went to a major national publication and said, look, here's 3 links, and these 3 links show that there is a radically different way of looking at history that's developing in the Russian, what you call intelligentsia or power circles, and it relates to a way of seeing the conflict with the United States as much deeper and profound and ongoing post-Cold War, and essentially views the Chechenian and Muslim movements inside Russia as American-driven, CIA-driven, that essentially they did what they did in Afghanistan and continued it because it was working, which is to say, just for listeners, when, the sort of the Charlie Wilson's war thing,
right,
where they armed al-Qaeda to go after Russia inside Afghanistan, the argument that these Russian historians and intellectuals were making was that campaign continued in Chechnya, and that there's a direct line between those events. Sounds kind of kooky and everything, right? But it's like, I would like to go report that. And this publication said to me, well, do you speak Russian? As if that was the point. And are you a Russian expert? And I was like, the reason to do this is because the Russian experts aren't looking at it.
Right.
And that went away. So what I think, that's just a good example of, trying to, as a reporter, find those cracks and fissures, to try to find the ideas underneath things and then try to understand them. So to return to this Putin thing, just say that Putin has this idea of this Russian rump throughout Eastern Europe, like in the Ukraine. He's going to take Crimea, and then he's going to take another bit of Ukraine, and on it goes. At some point, it's going to become evident that Russia's not America's friend, right? Like at some point, when Putin's on the border of Germany, say, or Poland, like as if these historical events we're immune from them now.
Right.
That's kind of how we've been living, right? Like none of that continental war stuff happens to us. Well, why is that precisely?
Well, this is
when that happens. Sorry.
This is the big test, right? I mean, like, is it, and I think particularly for the left, which, or I should say, traditionally the left, I think, has thought less about foreign policy. Just simply, it's just not the territory that they're playing on. And the notion of the United States as a moderating force in the world, I feel like that theory, that hypothesis, is going to be tested in the next 4 years.
Well, but the thing, yeah. So I was raised by my father was a virulent anti-imperialist, anti-American guy, right? Like really believed that there were no political parties in the United States. It was just because the Democrats and Republicans were identical, and I was raised in Canada, and I had this very kind of un-American childhood in a way. But here I am living in America, and I don't feel the same way as my father really at all, but it gave me a perspective. So one of the things that's important to do is what you just said, is like, not reflexively blame America, but look at it. Is the American example important, and how is it changing, and what are the implications? But I really think it's crucial, and you just listen to the news with this in mind. It's crucial to make sure that the consequences and implications of what transpires are put where they belong.
Hey, it's Sam Seder. Why don't you subscribe to this channel? You can do so right over here. Subscribe.